Today, because the curriculum is working with Fetter 6 right now, we're going to do Fetter 6 exploration. Um, as always, it's kind of a see what arises in the moment kind of thing, but I think we're going to be doing a uh, exploration of sound through the Fetter 6 lens. So if you'd like to close your eyes, take a few deep breaths. With each breath, feel the muscles get a little bit more relaxed. You don't have to think about anything that has happened earlier today. You don't have to think about anything that might happen later on. The only thing you have to pay attention to right now is what is absolutely in your direct experience. So take a few more deep breaths, letting all of the tension out, feeling gravity pulling you deeper and deeper into the seat with each exhalation. Now, I'd like for you to let your breath go back to normal and bring your attention to a sound somewhere in your vicinity. It might be in your room, it might be outside of the room. Try to pick something which is relatively consistent. So it might be a refrigerator running, or it might be traffic outside, or um, somebody's mowing the lawn, anything that has a consistent sound. If you happen to be in an almost completely anechoic chamber, then notice the sounds that are happening inside the body. A lot of us have a very quiet tinnitus that goes underneath the radar most of the time, but you might notice that. You can maybe even notice that you hear the nervous system or um, the blood running in the veins. But this experience will actually be better if you can pick something which is outside of the body. So see if you can find something there first and then use the bodily sounds as a bit of a last resort. So keeping your attention light and gentle, find that sound that seems to be in the external environment and allow the attention to just gently hold it in focus and notice what immediately comes up as soon as you have locked on to this sound. Do you immediately see a vision, an image of what this sound represents? If it's a bird, are you seeing an image of a bird in a tree? If it's a car, do you see an image of a car? If it's a refrigerator, do you see an image of a refrigerator? And if you're not a particularly visually minded thinker, see if it shows up in some other way. Maybe you hear a sentence about it. If it feels like there's an internal knowing of what the object is without seeing a sight, an image of it, then get very curious in your direct experience about how this object is known to be the object that it is thought to be. So recognizing however the object appears, if it's an image, if it's a thought, if it's a sound, let that go and keep coming back to the very raw, direct experience of the sound. The next thing I'd like for you to notice is can you seem to locate that sound in space? Can you tell that it's 20 degrees to the right or 60 degrees to the left? Does it seem to be above you or behind you? Feel what it feels like to have something appear at a specific distance from you with a specific orientation. What is actually happening that it feels like that sound is happening at a distance from a specific direction? Are you comparing that sound to what seems to be the absence of sound in the other direction? Does it feel like it's weighted to one side of your experience? Do you only hear it through one ear? Without trying to do anything to change this experience, I would like you to just notice, do you have a physical sensation that is helping to create a sense of truth to that feeling that the sound is at a certain distance from a specific direction? Is there a tension arising in the body? Is there a feeling of extra pressure in the ear or the side of the head closest to that sound? Does it feel like the condensation of sensation happening somewhere in a region which is creating a sense of weightiness or spatialization through which you're viewing that sound? We really want to get a sense for what it is that is creating this feeling of distance that we take for granted. Because distance is not an actuality in our experience. Distance is a perceptual overlay. The fact is that the sounds are not happening at a distance outside the body, and yet we somehow experience them that way. So we want to get very curious about what it is exactly that we are feeling, seeing, hearing, smelling, and tasting that is giving us the illusion of that sense of distance. Just as it's possible that we are deciding that the sound is coming from the right because there seems to be a comparative lack of that sound on the left. We are often judging things to be at a distance because we're comparing them to something which seems to be here in the center of our experience. experiencing sound close up or seeing the three-dimensional vision collapse to two-dimensional vision is interesting, but it's not transformative. It's not necessarily more than a curious parlor trick. If we don't take from that the much deeper insight that there is not anything separate from or at a distance to the appearance that's arising. So while holding on to a sound outside, and if you have lost the sound that was there before, try to find another relatively consistent sound, something that you can hold your attention on. I want you to feel, again, this sense of distance with that object somewhere outside of you. And then once that is felt, I want you to turn the attention back inside the body to what it is that feels like it is the one that seems to be hearing this sound, the one who is presumed to be seated right here in the center of experience, with a whole world happening in 360 degrees around it. And I want to be very clear when you're looking for this one, this witness, this subject who is separate from the object, it can only show up in one of the five senses. It can only be in one of the five physical senses or the five mental correlates of those physical senses. So I would like you to be on the lookout for physical sensations in the body, mental images that seem to be supporting the idea of a witnesser or a hearer, something which might be a representation of the body in its current configuration. There might be an internal sense of a sound which is being pitted against this external sound, and the two might be compared one to the other. So if you have this sort of internal tinnitus happening, that might seem very much close up, and that might be compared to this sound that seems to be at such a distance from it. Notice anything that arises that seems to be an indication of something that is located here. Keep listening to the sounds outside, and then again, quickly turning the attention back to scan through all of the five senses to see what feels like it's at this location separate from the sensation out there. Do you feel the denseness or the solidity of the body? Do you feel the muscles in the face, the muscles behind the eyes, tension in the head? Do you feel a contraction in the chest? Do you feel something that seems to be saying, this is the central point of existence, and everything is happening around me? And if you do, simply tease it apart into the five senses. If it's sensation, allow it to be sensation. If it's a mental image, allow it to be a mental image. And as you find these small phenomena that show up, notice what it is that seems to be creating a sense of distance or a sense of space between this physical sensation in the body or this mental image in the mind and the sound which is supposedly happening at a distance from it. Does that felt distance almost seem to be another felt sense? Does it almost feel like an intangible field radiating outside the body, creating a sense of distance? Does it almost feel like a large aura that fills out the room, this feeling of presence, a sort of awareness that seems to be reaching from some core inside the body out as far as the senses can reach? If so, if you feel that, I want you to recognize that it's only a physical sensation. It has nothing to do with that sense of distance. It has nothing to do with the sound which is apparently being heard. It's another very convincing illusion of the sensory system. So, placing your attention on the sound, allow that sound to be free from those illusions. Recognize that any feeling that happens in the physical system, in the felt sense field, has no relation to that sound at a distance. Recognize that the visual images that arise in the mind of a body and a bird on a distant tree limb or a car a mile away, that is just an image appearing in the mental space. And it has no connection with that sound as it appears in its most raw nature. And if there is only sound that is appearing with nothing here which can be found to be the receiver of that sound, or the one which is actually the center of the experience, then that sound itself, no matter how far away it initially seemed to be, can only be happening right here. The sensations in the body and the images that show up in the mind and the sounds which are heard are all happening in exactly the same place. They're neither dependent on each other nor happening separately. So see if you can relax that sense of distance, that sense of being the one who is hearing the sound. See if you can put so much attention on the sound itself that that distance naturally collapses. Allow the sound itself to grow in volume, to seem to take up more and more space. Be absolutely present with the sound so that the sound becomes all there is. And when the sound has expanded, and it seems to be right here, the only thing in experience, then where is the subject that seems to be apart from it? If anything still claims to be the subject, notice in which of the five senses it is appearing, and pay attention to that feeling, that image, that sound, and recognize that it is not doing the witnessing. It is not doing the hearing. Tension in the throat or the chest or the head cannot hear. An image of a body cannot hear. They cannot know and they cannot recognize. So they are not the witness or the hearer. All that's here is sound, sounding, being experienced by the sound. There is nothing separate from it that needs to experience it. The hearing is the sound. Seeing if you can maintain this perspective, this witness free, direct experience with the sound. I want you to gradually feel back into the body and notice also that there is no distance between the sensations in the body and the supposed witness or knower of the sensations. And in a few moments, when you're ready, you can begin to very slowly open your eyes and let the light in. And as you do this, I want you to also recognize that as images appear, that there is no witnesser, no seer separate from the images. The sights themselves are the seeing. The sensations themselves are the feeling. Thank you.